Well, Monday, March 25th was a bloody Monday at Boeing indeed, as they suddenly announced that they were finally overhauling its leadership in the wake of, well, I don't need to tell you what the wake was, in the wake of everything that's wrong with Boeing. Among the quote, sweeping changes, Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun will be leaving by the end of this year. Stan Deal, the CEO of plane manufacturing for airlines and other commercial customers, is retiring effective immediately, which is code for fired with the golden parachute. But he will be replaced by current Boeing COO Stephanie Pope. I'll bring you up to speed on Ms. Pope a little later. Also, Boeing's axe fell on its chairman of the board, Larry Kellner, who announced he won't be standing for re-election this year. And over the weekend, the board elected Steve Mollenkopf, an electrical engineer and former CEO of Qualcomm, the wireless semiconductor maker, as its new chairman of the board. And finally, the new chairman will be responsible for finding Boeing's next CEO, which won't be a tough search because in that jumble of names and titles, we already know who the next CEO will be. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on who that will be in a minute. Okay, so why the sudden drastic moves over the weekend? Well, I know exactly why it happened and exactly who lit the fuse. And I'm going to tell you about it on this very special edition of Maximus Aviation's Boeing Succession. That's next on Maximus. Did you ever wonder exactly how many straws it takes to break a camel's back? Especially if that camel is named Boeing. Well, apparently it takes a lot of straws if those straws were actually hundreds of human beings and billions of dollars in losses. As I promised, I'll tell you who or what the exact last straw was in a minute. However, one of those last and final straws landed last week, fresh on the heels of a very public and exhaustive shaming of Boeing by the NTSB in front of the U.S. Congress, where Boeing was laid bare for having zero safety oversight at any of their facilities, faking, forging, or downright losing any documentation related to the Alaska Airlines mishap, forcing Boeing to admit the door plug repair documents never existed in the first place. So there's that straw. Then there was that other little thing that happened about a week ago. What was that? Oh yeah, Boeing may or may not have whacked an innocent whistleblower. And that happened even as the stench of mendacity was still left wafting in the air from Boeing's beatdown in front of Congress. And yet the Boeing camel was still standing, but boy, the weight of a million straws was beginning to take its toll. How many more could the camel Boeing withstand? Well, then came the news that last week passengers of the ill-fated Alaska Airlines 737 MAX blowout flight started receiving letters from the FBI Seattle office, informing them that they, meaning the passengers on that flight, may have been victims, yes, victims of a crime. And the FBI was letting them know because now they are involved in an ongoing criminal investigation of Boeing. Due to the incident and past criminal plea agreements Boeing may or may not have broken with the U.S. Justice Department that could see Boeing prosecuted for their crimes. So after I had a good laugh at that news, because let's be real, Boeing's never going to get prosecuted by the U.S. government. But let's put a pin in that one for now too. Then came yet more straws, all within about a week of each other, when news broke that Southwest, the airline that basically put the 737 on the map with their historic all 737 fleet for well over 50 years, announced that they were courting JetBlue in an effort to merge with the all-Airbus airline. And Southwest also let it be known that there may be room for Airbus aircraft in their future for the first time in the history of the airline. Add to that, Alaska Airlines, another 737 airline fleet, is in the process of merging with Hawaiian Air, which has both Airbus and Boeing products, on top of Southwest's admission that they are also considering adding Airbus jets to their fleet. So let's add that straw. Oh man, can you see it? The poor camel's back is bent so far his belly is almost touching the ground. But then it was time for that inevitable and, more importantly, final straw that came thundering down on the camelback that is Boeing, coming from a lovely chap named Michael O'Leary of all people. You know him, he's the CEO of another all-Boeing 737 low-budget airline famous for their buttery smooth landings. That being, of course, Europe's largest budget carrier, Ryanair. And this came specifically during this year's aviation summit, also in this month of March. O'Leary told the world that Ryanair is still receiving brand new $100+ million MAX jets with leftover parts tucked inside, such as spanners, which I believe is what we Americans refer to as wrenches, but I could be wrong, so be sure and let me know down below. But they also found things like spare ladders and other fun leftover shiny bits in their new planes. But hey, don't take my word for it, let's let Mr. O'Leary explain. However, I want you to pay close attention and actually see if you can visualize and hear that final straw being dropped, because I think it's all here. O'Leary told the summit that Boeing has 30 engineers in Seattle and Wichita doing inspections, and whenever we take delivery of our new aircraft, we do our own 48-hour inspection at Ryanair in Dublin with our own mechanics. We often find little things like spanners under the floors and handles missing on seats, which we wouldn't really expect to find on a $100 million piece of kit. Yeah, it's hard to believe the same company that forgot to install the bolts that actually hold the plane together is delivering brand new planes without checking for seat handles. But O'Leary said that I have confidence in Dave Calhoun, the Boeing CEO, and we have confidence in Brian West, the Boeing CFO. However, he stressed this point that I have less confidence with the management in Seattle. Furthermore, punctuating the worrying aspect of the missing seat handles, well, that really had O'Leary concerned. Oh, but wait, there's more pearls of wisdom or straws in the quiver from Michael O'Leary. Because not long after those comments, in an interview with the online news site Skift, O'Leary criticized the president and CEO of the commercial airplane's wing, Stan Deal, who just happened to be a casualty of Boeing's bloody Succession weekend. O'Leary asked in the third person, do I have confidence in Stan Deal? Well, that's the wrong question. But answering his own question, he said, I think Stan Deal has to demonstrate that he's capable of turning around the operation in Seattle. What Boeing needs in Seattle is not necessarily a sales guy, O'Leary said, adding that they need someone who's going to sit there on a daily basis and do the grind, asking questions like what's the delay, what's the problem, and fixing the supply chain. Boeing needs leadership. Stan needs to get his finger out. He needs to sit in Seattle on a daily basis producing aircraft. They don't need sales. They're fully sold out until 2030 anyway. And with that, did you hear that noise? I heard it. That was the final straw that finally snapped the back of Boeing and snapped Boeing's board into action. But Ryanair's O'Leary isn't the only CEO complaining. He was just, as I said, the latest, the last, and the loudest. And it seems to me anyway, after the FBI investigation and O'Leary's very loud and public comments, that the Boeing board went to work on the phones with other shareholders, and by this past weekend, blood was already in the water. And after that, it was just a matter of making the Boeing management changes public. Because according to reports, airline leaders publicly expressed frustration with the manufacturer after the incident. The chief executives of several major carriers in the U.S. were sent to meet with President Boeing Board Chairman Larry Kellner, who announced Monday he will not be seeking re-election along with other board members this week. And if you've ever seen the HBO show Succession, you'll understand why CEO Dave Calhoun said he was supportive of those meetings, but he was not going to personally attend them. Yeah, 'cause he was, like, fired and stuff. And of course, as I said, ahead of those meetings, Boeing's board met on a conference call this weekend to approve the leadership changes announced on Monday. Alrighty then, who's out and who's in? Well, starting with CEO Dave Calhoun, he's leaving by the end of this year. What does that mean? That means he's training his replacement on the way out the door. So then who is his replacement? Well, we know it's not going to be the CEO of plain Stan Deal because his firing was effective immediately. So he and his golden cardboard box have left the building forever. However, Stanfredo Deal is being replaced by this woman, current Boeing COO Stephanie Pope, as head of its commercial airplanes division. And although Boeing is going to, quote, search for a new CEO, I'm calling my shot now. And you can bet the farm on this one. Stephanie Pope is being groomed to be the new top dog and CEO of Boeing. So who is Miss Stephanie Pope and what do we know about her background? Well, I'm glad you asked. Pope was appointed to the newly created role of Chief Operating Officer in December. So if they made up a new job title for her, well, that's just a placeholder, so to speak, until they can install her as the new CEO. Hey, don't get me wrong, seriously, I wish her the best, I really do. She could possibly not do any worse. Plus, she'll be a hero if she fixes this mess, an absolute rock star. But man, it's a big job. But it seems like it'd be a real rags to riches kind of story for her. Pope joined Boeing in 1994 and rose through the ranks to take on senior level roles at all three of the company's key businesses. Before becoming the CEO of Boeing Global Services, BGS, in April of 2022, she was the finance chief of the commercial airplanes businesses from December of 2020 to March of 2022. Before that, she was the CFO of Boeing Global Services from January 2017 to December 2020. She has a bachelor's degree in accounting from Southwest Missouri State University and a master's of business administration from Linwood University. So like I said, she's probably the next CEO. Of the other changes that took place, other than Michael O'Leary putting a horse's head in Stan Deal's bed. Oh, and speaking of Mr. O'Leary, Ryanair's outspoken boss said of the sweeping management changes made at Boeing that they were much needed. In one of the first public comments from an executive at a major airline since CEO Dave Calhoun announced his departure on Monday, the 25th of March, in a statement titled Ryanair Welcomes Boeing Management Changes in Seattle, the Irish budget carrier said it believed the changes were necessary and good for Boeing and its customers. O'Leary added, "We look forward to working with Stephanie Pope to accelerate the B737 aircraft deliveries to customers, including Ryanair in Europe, for summer and autumn of 2024. And rounding out Boeing's Bloody Monday, also as I said, Boeing board chair Larry Kellner, on the company board for 13 years and chair since 2019, announced he won't stand for re-election at Boeing's annual meeting in May. Steve Mellenkopf, former CEO at wireless tech semiconductor and chip manufacturer Qualcomm, who was appointed to the board of directors in 2020, will replace Kellner immediately as board chair and will lead the CEO search. Hey Steve, let me save you some time searching. Go down the hall to Stephanie Pope's office. Pretty sure she's already got the gig. So with that, you are all caught up on the real-life succession story going on at Boeing. But now the big question is, and only time will reveal this, is Boeing making the right decision with these moves? Well, it's kind of hard to make things worse, don't you think? Well, don't just think it. Tell me. Let me know down below. And on your way out, don't forget to do all that YouTube-y stuff. And until next time, as always, remember, yeah, this is Maximus.